Beetlejuice Beetlejuice was apparently in development for decades, and time passed doesn't necessarily mean a project is going to come out in a better state. Take The Flash, for example, which took 10 years from conception to release, or Black Adam, which had existed in a conceptual form since 2007. With Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, it feels like the aspect of the movie that was eroded over time, and who knows how many iterations, was the story itself. The atmosphere is here in all its Tim Burton glory, the acting is good to great, and all of the locations and beats from the original Beetlejuice are present as well. But some pacing and plot issues, along with weak to almost non existent antagonists, mire this trip down memory lane.
Now's my chance.
I grew up with the 1988 Beetlejuice and loved it. I still do. It's one of those supremely unique movies with boundless creativity and a special kind of wackiness that shouldn't work but totally does. It's a product of the 80s, when movie studios took chances on wild ideas instead of endlessly rehashing the same thing over and over like now.
Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th. Part 2. Friday the 13th. The final chapter. Friday the 13th. Part 5.
Friday the 13th, Part 7. Friday the 13th, Part 8.
Never mind all that. It's innocent fun in a PG kind of way, but skirts the line of horrifying for a young child at certain points. It was a great time when I was but a wee lad, and just as entertaining as an adult. Hell, I even watched the Beetlejuice cartoon and totally ate it up. I didn't question it at the time, what with the Ghostbusters and real Ghostbusters cartoons in full swing. But when I think of it now, it seems wild that a Beetlejuice cartoon was even made, and somehow worked too. I tell you all this so you know that I went into the sequel with a definite bias, by way of an affinity for the older material. So how does the new film stack up 36 years later? In a lot of ways, it feels just like the original. Aesthetically, there's no doubt about it. Tim Burton's signature style is all over the screen, and the emphasis on practical effects is a highlight in this era of CG-dominated offerings. The story picks up at a logical point, after Charles has passed away in a freak accident, which brings the Dietz family together at the old house in the quaint town with its iconic wood-covered bridge. There's a callback to one of the most memorable scenes in the original, with Day-O being sung at Charles' funeral,
Daylight come and we want to go.
which is shown in the trailer. And that's when the cracks start to show. Despite the new characters and the vast gulf of time, Beetlejuice Beetlejuice really doesn't add many things that feel fresh and different. It kind of suffers from his strict adherence to his source material, in a way that I might like for some sequels, but not here. The wife of Beetlejuice that the trailer makes a big deal out of is largely meaningless. She doesn't have much of an impact on our characters or the story overall, really, and when it comes time to resolve the situation, it's over in an instant. Her character could have been written out of the script and the result would have been much the same. That goes for Willem Dafoe's character as well. While he does a decent job of hamming it up for some chuckles, the jokes feel pretty flat and repetitive, and in the end, he really doesn't do much. Both of these characters sort of exist in the background, though a significant amount of time is devoted to building them up as important facets of the story, which never pay off in a satisfying way. As for the others, we have Winona Ryder reprising her role as Lydia, who is sort of the heart of the original. Catherine O'Hara returns as the ditzy artist and reluctant mother, Delia, who's even more ditzy and over the top this time around. Justin Theroux is Rory, Lydia's scummy boyfriend who does a good job at pulling off an eccentric yoga vegan enthusiast in touch with his and everyone else's feelings. He's kind of an Otho stand-in. And Jenna Ortega plays Astrid, Lydia's estranged daughter. Jenna Ortega is the most intriguing addition to this film, as it seems like a perfect fit for her in the wake of her excellent and iconic performance in Wednesday. And it is. Does she feel too much like Wednesday Addams? Not really, but there are definite vibes, especially in the beginning when we see her at school.
When you're all driving carpool and banging your Pilates instructors to fill the empty voids in your life, we'll see who gets the last laugh.
Jenna fits right into this world and her acting is effortless and convincing. Her character is a welcome addition to this sequel for sure, and her relationship with the boy she meets at random was actually one of the most interesting parts of the film, for a while. But before I get ahead of myself, there's someone else I didn't mention, obviously. Michael Keaton as the titular Beetlejuice. Man, this guy is such a good actor. He can single-handedly draw crowds for the ill-fated Flash movie.
Yeah. I'm Batman.
And then effortlessly summon the madness for his turn as the ghost with the most 36 years later, and without missing a beat. His performance is top-notch. He feels pretty much the same as Beetlejuice did in the original, though a bit muted in terms of behavior.
Nice fucking model!
Though that was down to the script and not his acting. He is by far the funnest character we see on screen, followed only by Bob, who is a standout side character in the way that only a mute, head-shrunken admin assistant can be. In terms of acting, I thought most of the cast did a great job, though Winona Ryder's Lydia ranged from good to just alright. She wore the same expression on her face for most of the film, and felt weak and indecisive for pretty much the entire thing. Her character has gone from a headstrong goth girl to an older goth woman starring in a ghost hunter type show / spirit medium a la Lorraine Warren in The Conjuring. It's a pretty fun setup for her character, but she never really feels in control, like everything that's happened in her life has been an accident, or because someone else urged her to go in that direction. And her expression says it all. Lydia's shortcomings are amplified whenever Winona Ryder has to act opposite Jenna Ortega, who I thought did a much better job at communicating a range of emotions than the veteran Winona. Lydia in the 1988 Beetlejuice is a much more self-assured, daring, and compelling character than in this latest edition. I'm not sure if this is a writing problem or intentional for her character, but Lydia does not feel like her younger self at all. And that difference is made all the more apparent by the wickedly good performances by Catherine O'Hara and Michael Keaton, who feel exactly as you remembered them, if even a bit zanier than before. You might argue that Lydia is a changed person because of her experiences and all the time that has passed between then and now, and I might agree with you if she didn't feel so wishy-washy. Her indecisiveness is really a detriment to her character that turned me off of her performance in general. All of the Beetlejuice elements established in the original movie are here, like Delia's sculptures, sandworms, the afterlife and its bureaucracy, an eager real estate agent, the same little town and house, the same model in the attic, and so on. But it didn't feel like much of anything new was added, except for a scene that's essentially a joke about a 70s TV show that's been made YouTube famous in the many clips and memes that have been circulating for years now. That one felt odd, and oddly on the nose, like an attempt at humor for those in the know, but those in the know have already seen and laughed at and appreciated the clips for so long that the joke just feels outdated. The afterlife, while fun and colorful like in the original, felt a bit too real at times. There are some basic spaces and rooms that feel exactly like they would in the human world, like a maintenance room or a train station. I was expecting some bizarre twist on these places, like a lopsided wall or something, but they just looked like something you'd see up here in the human world, with some different colored lighting. It's not bad looking by any means, but it stands out in comparison to the other logic-defying locations in the afterlife. I think the biggest detriment to this movie is that everything feels too easy. The resolutions are too fast and effortless, with the main threats being dealt with quickly and without too much effort. After being built up throughout the runtime, when that moment of confrontation comes and it's done and dusted in a minute, it's disappointing. The rules of the world are used as they should be, as much as we have an explanation for, but it feels too simple. Unlike a lot of recent movies, the tension is built up, but the resolutions feel like a letdown. When the tension wasn't being ramped up and the focus turned to family dynamics, I was mostly bored, and for long stretches of the film, just waiting for something fun to happen or a joke to land. The first movie was a tight 1 hour and 30-minute comedy about a couple who's died and wants to rid their house of an obnoxious new family that's moved in and is ruining their perfect household. Beetlejuice is a bio-exorcist, a crass, manipulative pervert who ends up trying to marry Lydia to escape the netherworld. In this film, Beetlejuice is a largely helpful and sympathetic character, despite being called a demon. He can seemingly resolve any situation in his own way, however he wants, except when it comes to his own name. And while there are plenty of jokes, I didn't hear anyone in the theater laughing, and that included me, except for a couple moments. As far as the story goes, the overall arc is not really clear-cut in terms of character objectives, and didn't seem all that important, except for immediate cases of survival. Generally speaking, this movie tries to pick up where things left off, adding a few new characters into the already established framework. This adherence to the original ideas hurts the newer concepts, I feel, and in the end, we're left repeating some of the same beats from the 1988 version, while the newer characters and ideas are brushed aside. For me, there were no standout moments, like in the original. There's an attempt at a big set piece at the end, but the quick and easy resolutions harmed it, and there was nothing really outstanding to talk about after leaving the theater. Sadly, I have to give Beetlejuice Beetlejuice a 6 out of 10. I wish I could have rated it higher, but it felt pretty bland, like an average movie that was helped by some excellent acting by Michael Keaton and elevated by Tim Burton's iconic style. Without those two aspects, there wouldn't be much to see here.
See, I'm willing to do the work.